What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Oh, not got my microphone. What a great start that is. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Real Reds Talk, your favourite football fan channel made in Manchester. And we have got a very interesting interview to sink our teeth into. An interview that features Erik, the current Man United manager, and former player Gary Neville. They talk about the Jong. They talk about the style of play. They talk about Harry Kane. They talk about loads of stuff. So we're going to get into that. Bayern Munich potentially wanting a manager swap, depending on what happens in the finals for both respective managers. Tuchel going one way, Erik going the other. And Mason Greenwood has been nominated for Team of the Season. So I'm going to discuss his performances, how he's been getting on at Getafe, and if he has a future at Manchester United, regardless of what I think, because I think everyone knows my opinion by this point. But yeah, I thought, quite a bit of news on a Friday, as we kind of usually get. We had quite a few shows yesterday as well on the channel. Your regular kind of afternoon news show at 12 o'clock. We then had the press conference coverage, and then we then had James on from the Muppeteers last night, who told us loads of detail in regards to Ineos and transfers and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, if you guys did miss that show and you want any kind of updates, do check it out, because he's very, very good when it comes to any kind of news around Ineos. So yeah, make sure you check that out, of course, after this show. But I'm going to dive into the interview. I'm going to go straight to the strong points. Anyone who has followed this channel knows I'm a huge fan of Frenkie de Jong, and that transfer saga took years off my life, respectively. And he got asked about it. And that's where I'm going to start it. I could have started with the Kane quotes. I could have started with the style of play. You can go anywhere with this, really, can't you? But I'm going to start off with the kind of Ajax style of football and Frenkie de Jong, and then I'll kind of give my reaction to it, and I'll get everybody else's reaction to it. So, speaking to Gary Neville on Sky Sports, Ten Hag got asked why he feels he cannot play his Ajax style of football at United. The manager explained that he does not have the right players. He goes on to say, because then you have to bring in the right players. You need the player with those typical assets, and you can't bring a player, say, here, who has a different typical style of play. I don't want to change his nature. And then Neville kind of pressed him a little bit more, basically saying, you're talking about de Jong, aren't you? Do you think de Jong maybe would have allowed you to play that Ajax style of football, if he would have signed in 2022? And he said, yeah, that would have been, they would have been connected with each other, and had a bit of a little bit of a smile on his face as well. So you could see clearly why he really, really wanted him. He also says in the last decade and in this period, we couldn't always get the players that we wanted. That's because we had people who were incompetent. He didn't say that. That's coming directly from me. But then you have to build, and you have to accept that you get talent in instead of players who have already proven it in the past. Now, the question that sprung to mind instantly is, would he have been a better fit than Casemiro at the time? I always think now, if we just swap him completely around, how different would the seasons would have been? Do you know what I mean? Because de Jong playing as a six, I know he's done it for Barcelona, and I know he's even played as a centre-back for Barcelona as well. But you look at how physical the league is. You look at, for example, Man City signed Rodri, height, physicality. Declan Rice, height, physicality. You can go through him. Casado, physical. He can get about the pitch. De Jong is fabulous on the ball. His defensive work is okay. But I think you would have lost a bit either way, whichever way you go. Because Casemiro in the first season, that pure defensive midfielder, was really, really good. One of the players of the season, and made a huge impact. But now you look at how much his legs have fallen off this season. You look at de Jong's age profile, you kind of maybe we could have been a bit more, let's say, possession-based this season if we would have had a de Jong, But then the question is, would Bruno, Cobbett and de Jong work? I don't think it would. I don't think it's physical enough. You look at Mainu's stature, Bruno's stature, de Jong's stature. That's a very weak physical team. Now, in terms of stamina, and, whatever way you want to go with that, they're not. They're absolutely fine, de Jong, Bruno and Kobe. But I'm talking about physical strength in that midfield when you're coming up against the likes of De Bruyne, Rodri, these kind of guys, Partey, Declan Rice, they're going to get bullied off it. So, I don't know. I think either way, we would have got more perks in terms of, ball retention, let's say, for example, with someone like a Frenkie de Jong. But Casemiro in the first season, you had that kind of central defensive midfield steal, if you will. But again, the way the style has gone this season, would it have been as bad if we had a de Jong consistently in the team? Would it have gone a different way? You don't know. Also, is he still available? A lot of noise coming out of Barcelona about you need to sell players, they're financially fucked. It's the same old story that we've heard before. You know, is he still available? Can we still get him? Does he want to see his contract out of Barca? He obviously loves it over there. Is it a dying dream? Most likely, that is going to be the point. But I think he would have been a very good transfer for Manchester United, and I think he could have shaped things differently, again, in my opinion. But then I'm a massive fan of Frenkie de Jong, so people feel differently about it. Completely understand that. He talks about the striker, about Rasmus and Harry Kane, which I thought was interesting. He said, we've had some choices made with talents like Rasmus Højlund. I can see a striker who already proved it, who we want to sign, and we couldn't get him. And then we went to Rasmus because he's a talent. Harry Kane will get you 30 goals. I think Rasmus Højlund will get there, but he needs time. It's not fair to assess him the same as Harry Kane. I would never compare the two players because they are very different. With Højlund, I think we've had the biggest potential in the striker position last summer, and we are very happy with him, but he also needs time to adapt, and we are very pleased he shows his assets in scoring goals. Like you said, two very different strikers. Kane, 100%, if he would have come in, even in this team, Harry Kane will score goals. He's just a guaranteed gold, which is probably why Ten Hag was looking at him, was like, I need this guy in. Obviously, it would have cost quite a bit, but you look at the impact it's had for Bayern Munich, is worth it. Because even Bayern Munich in one of their worst seasons, he's been an absolute star. He's on, 40, 50 goals, something ridiculous. Could break Lewandowski's goal record for the season. So, yeah, another one where you kind of look at it would have been interesting because he's obviously a better striker than Rasmus Højlund. That's not a kick on Højlund. Højlund's 10 years younger than Kane, so he's still got a lot of time to develop. But Kane is the gold standard for strikers at the minute, and you bring him in, you definitely win a few more games with him in there. But then Rasmus, you kind of build and his potential and all that kind of stuff. And stylistically, it's interesting because Rasmus is more one who can run at players. He's more physical. Can kind of run in behind. Kane drops to feet. He can create. He's fucking finishing's fantastic on both feet. He can head. Great, fantastic penalty taker. They're completely different. So, the style would have been different. If we would have got Kane and De Jong in instead of Rasmus and Casemiro, like, you see what I'm saying? It would have been different for many, many reasons. But in fairness to Højlund, and again, we've done a show on this yesterday, there's a lot of reasons why he's struggling. In fact, we did 10 reasons why he's struggling. We all know him. I don't need to go back through him. So, yeah, would Kane have had the same problems? Not necessarily, because someone like Harry Kane creates his own chances, doesn't he? So, I think, he still would have 20-plus goals, easy, because that's just Harry Kane. And he was already used to the Premier League. It wasn't like he would have needed to settle in or anything like that. So, he probably made the right decision going to Bayern Munich, to be honest with you. But especially if you look at the way Manchester United are at the moment. But from senior players to young players, I mean, I guess I was already discussing Rasmus anyway. Ten Hag's spoken about Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, and there was a couple of interesting quotes in here. And I'll get to the comment section in a minute, so please do get your opinions in and leave a like on the video. He said, there is a game model here. How do you think Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo were able to come up? That's because it was one of my objectives from the previous leadership team to bring that in. Garnacho and Mainoo, bring the levels required, but we need more from such players because football is going very quickly. Developments are still going very quickly, so you can't stand still. You have to make new improvements all the time. And in fairness, he is very firm with the kids who are coming up. He does set the bar really, really high. For example, he says, if no one's performing like Kobbie is, you ain't getting in the team, which is the bar that you want to set, right? The more talents we get like that, the better it is for us. However, I don't think them two in particular get enough credit for this season alone, because if you look at how chaotic it's been, they've almost become like senior players in the team who are showing that levels of consistency. They're not really dropping too much in the performances, even though they're 19-year-old kids. And they're performing more on a consistent basis than some of the senior players. Kobbie's been better than Casemiro, for example, this season, in my opinion. He's performed better. Garnacho's performed better than Marcus Rashford. And Marcus Rashford's been at the club for, years and years and years and years. Again, different stages of the career, but if we wouldn't have had Garnacho and Kobbie in the team, I mean, God knows where we'd be as well. And these are 19-year-old kids. So, I know some people disagree with the fact when they're brought off in a game and they're like, why is he taking Kobbie off and bringing this guy on? But, from a manager's perspective, you have to protect these players. You can't just run them into the ground or you'll end up with a career like you fucking Michael Owen or Rooney towards like the tailor end, like when they just played way too many games when they're young. Even someone like a Theo Walcott, let's say, when they just ran into the ground from the age of 18 upwards. So you have to manage them correctly. the bodies are still technically growing, aren't they? And still 21 as well. So yeah, I think for both of them, very exciting talents. It needs to put on a little bit more muscle, I would probably say, especially Cobby in the midfield area, and hopefully grows a little bit more as well, and kind of get that physical stature for the Premier League. But ability alone, those two, really interesting to see how they develop. I think they're both top talents. I think Cobby Mainoo is a generational talent. Whether you throw Garnacho in the same bracket or not, probably. I don't know. I guess we'll see how they develop. Sometimes you look like a bit of an idiot when you look back on them comments. Wow, an early start. That's refreshing for a YouTube channel. We are live every day now, 12 o'clock and 7 o'clock on TikTok and YouTube. So if you are not subscribed to Real Red Talk yet, please do. We're currently on, 4,932. So we're 68 subs off 5K. If there is anyone watching currently who loves football content, we've got loads of lads on the channel. We have guests on. We do pre-match build-up, post-match build-up. I'm going to start doing live watch-alongs again because we stopped doing that. But there's loads of stuff that we've got on there. We've got shorts. We've got pre-records. Yeah, hit that subscribe button if you can, and you're an absolute legend. Sean saying, are you just showing Chivy you go live when you want and you're the one who's in control? I don't know. I mean, it's a very niche reference. I don't know if people will get that, Sean, but fair play to you. Charlie, it's 100 plus anything. Sorry, I didn't read out Charlie's comment there. Sounds like a club do not have much cash in the summer. 100 million max, 2 players, maybe a couple of free players. Check out the show we did with, I think he was in the chat actually, with Muppeteers. He explained the situation heading into this summer and what it's going to look like. Like Soupy Special says there, great show last night with James. Yeah, it was really, really good and very insightful as always. And as Soupy Special says there, I must watch. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. Where was he at now? Yeah, the young players, I've already spoken about that. On signings in general, Ten Hag says this club can only have exceptional players because the expectations are very high. Manchester United is the biggest or maybe the second or third biggest club in the world with the biggest fan base, so the expectations will always be there. This year, we wanted to make the next step. So we brought in a goalkeeper who can play out from the back, a dynamic midfielder in Mason Mount, who's been injured all season, and a goal scorer in Højlund, who is young and needs time. So, again, the questions you ask again and again is, well, what was the plan? Because it certainly wasn't this chaos. You know, we've had to pivot so many times on deals under different managers where we've wanted a certain profile of player, and it's just like, yeah, United can't negotiate the way out of a paper bag. So we've had to pivot and go for somebody else. And we are, again, for the last 10 years, we are a reactionary club rather than proactive, which is ironic because Ten Hag wants to play proactive football. But, you know, what would... Also, food for thought, what would Mount's permanent role be as well? When you looked at signing him, you brought in Onana, you're like, right, okay, you can see why you brought him in. People wanted more of a modern style of goalkeeper so you could play out from the back. Onana was one of the best goalkeepers in the Champions League, amazing with his feet. That's an obvious one where you go, okay, you know, 40 odd million quid. I think that's a pretty good price, to be honest, considering his age profile and what he had done in the Champions League. You're like, okay, I understand it. Mason Mount, I like him personally as a player, but then you have to question, like, what is his permanent role? Where is he going to play? You know, is he going to be a permanent 8 alongside of Bruno Fernandes, and then your Casemiro is your 6? So then what happens with Cobby Mainoo? Do you just bench him? Can you bench him? Can you push Bruno out onto the right and then bring Mount in? Like, what was the plan? Genuine, serious question for anyone who's watching here. Anyone watching in the TikTok, what is the plan for Mason Mount? Please tell me. Or what do you think Erik Ten Hag was thinking? What was the thought process? Because you watch the game against Spurs, for example, and you see the first 45 minutes, they want to get a lot of turnovers. It's that counter-pressing game, high press, transitional football. You can see why Mount and Bruno would be good at that. But obviously, Casemiro hindered it a little bit because the amount of space that he had to deal with. So you almost need an N'Golo Kante-like player in the midfield. But then again, it comes back to the question, like, where does Cobby come into it? I don't know. I think a lot of United fans were confused with that signing. And it's almost like, if you're going to go and spend 60 million quid on a player who's very talented, by the way, who plays in the same position as Bruno, does that make sense? Or could you have not bought another striker with that 60 million quid? You know, to someone who could back up Rasmus and bring us goals as well on top of that. Or could you have not gone and bought a really good number 6. So this style would be more. Maybe you didn't see the dramatic fall that Casemiro's had. I'm not entirely sure, but Human says it there. 0 plan, most pathetic signing ever. I wouldn't agree with that simply because I like Mason Mount. I think he's a good player. I think he divides people, but it's unfair to call him pathetic because he's been injured. Like it's not like it's his fault. You know what I mean? But I get why it's confusing for a lot of people. If he was fit, I'd switch to a 3 at the back. Well, at Chelsea, in fairness, with Mount, he played like across the front line, didn't he? Predominantly in like a 3 because they played with Tuchel at the back, which is why I think it'd be interesting to see if Tuchel came in, what system he'd set up with. He'd obviously trust Mount. That'd be one of his go-to players. It'd be interesting to see. I just want to see a permanent role for him, where he fits in, where he's going to play. I'd love to ask Tanag that question. You know, where he'll probably turn around to his dynamic midfielder. He can play, he can play in loads of positions, and maybe that is. But I don't know. But it was just confusing for me. Very, very confusing. With Onana, I think people have been critical of his distribution. I mean, even Aaron, who's been on the channel before, I'm not slagging him off. He's come on and he said, I'm not entirely sure why he's been brought in for his distribution. A lot of the time when I watch him, he's kind of booting it out of play, or he's misplacing passes, which in fairness he did against Sheffield. For Delors, he's done it in the Champions League when Casemiro got sent off. Like, he's done it a few times, but goalkeepers make mistakes. Ederson makes mistakes. Alisson makes mistakes. It happens. It's just a way of playing at the moment. And also, the back four that he's had in front of him, I mean, we've had probably, 25 different centre-back partnerships, 30 different back lines. Camboire, Evans, Lindelof, Maguire, Varane, Shaw, Delors, Wan-Bissaka, all mixed bags in, like, every game, basically, chopping and changing. So, as a goalkeeper, you need stability and you need a stable backline in front of you so you can develop that chemistry and patterns. You know when to play it out. You know who can receive it under pressure. And when you have to make that switch from the Sandro Martinez to a Johnny Evans or a Maguire who can't take the ball under pressure as well, you have to then kind of switch up the way you're playing. You have to go long a lot more. And yeah, it's not ideal, but we've had to pivot again in that sense because of injuries. Get Greenwood back and sell Rashford has been the problem all along. I'm going to get into Mason Greenwood in a minute. I'm going to discuss that. But yeah, I thought the way you were speaking about the signings was interesting. Charlie says Mount can play most roles, be it out on the wing, 10, 8, maybe even a 6. He was good at blocking shots for Chelsea. I know he's a man of many talents, but I don't know. I'd like to see him in a permanent role, I suppose, rather than a squad player if you're going to spend 60 million quid. On the style of play, he got asked about playing more defensively at certain points because obviously it's been chaotic and we're receiving like 20 shots a game. He said, we thought about this, but one of my objectives here was to bring in a proactive way of play. Last season, we had the consistent back four. We did the same, and we had the most clean sheets in the Premier League, which is facts. You can't argue with that. So when everyone is fit, they can deliver the way we want to defend, but it also has something to do with possession. When you don't have the players at the back and the patterns, when you don't have left-footed players on left side, you already have to make your adjustments. It changes the way of play, but also your possession. And when you have less possession, you also have more shots on your own goal. And I can understand about players missing and how it can disrupt your way, like in terms of passing lanes, and you can go really into detail about that. But no one, including the United manager or any pundit or any player or anyone who's just a fan of United, can tell me we couldn't have been more pragmatic in games. Especially when you're ahead and you're 2 goals up or whatever it is. Leaving it so open and naive. Leaving it so open is naive first and foremost. But to keep it chaotic, it's like you're almost inviting pressure. And I know some people will say that as well equally. If you go pragmatic and a bit more defensive, you're inviting pressure. But we are very good on the counter-attack as well. So, yes, we may be inviting them on when we're shoring up things a little bit more. But we always have players on the pitch like Bruno or Mount or Rashford and Garnacho and these boom, can kill teams in an instant. We've proved that against, some of the biggest teams in the world. So you can still be pragmatic in your approach and be direct and transitional. It was bizarre to me leaving it so open and then having like centre backs higher up the pitch than the attackers. And he had phases of this at Ajax, and it seemed to pay off a little bit more because the quality is different. Sometimes he would just overload areas a lot with players even from the back line. But he just can't. I think he's underestimated the Premier League, in my opinion. And one thing that always sticks in my head as well is Rangnick when he was speaking about the difference from the Prem to the German league. And he always mentioned that, in the German league, when they played, I don't know, Stuttgart at the bottom or whoever it was, easy 4-5-0 if you Bayern Munich or Dortmund or Leipzig or something like that. Whereas, in this Premier League, we're playing Crystal Palace, for example, right? Who 14th, I believe, in the league, somewhere around there. That we could probably get beat off Crystal Palace. Like, they are a dangerous team at the minute, and they have individual players who can kill you. So you can't take your foot off the pedal. The competition in the Prem is mega. It's massive, and teams can cause problems, and that's why it's one of the best leagues in the world. So yeah, just in general, as an overall, leaving it so open, in games like even games against bottom of the table, is so stupid to me. It's so fucking stupid. But there we are. He wants to be stubborn and he wants to stick with it. That's fine. Sean saying never been sold on Mount even before we signed him. No idea why we went for him. Really feel it was a waste of money and a signing not worth going for. Big Erik Ten Hag supporter, but that one baffled me. It's baffled a lot of people. And again, I understand it. I'm not going to go against it too much, but I've always stuck by Mount. I said I trust him and I like him as a player. And I think he's been an important cog when he's been fit and available for, whatever team he's played for, whether it be Chelsea, whether it be England, whoever. Really important player. I think most coaches, if you ask them, would you take Mason Mount, which is why the reason why Arteta wanted him, which is why the reason why Jurgen Klopp wanted him, that's well-known knowledge. There's a reason why they want him, because he works extremely hard off the ball. He's a smart thinker on the pitch. He's bow-footed. He can play in a multitude of areas. I like him. But yeah, anyway, we'll move it on. Just the last thing in this interview with Gary Neville, they discussed the FA Cup final. Ten Hag says United didn't play so often in 2 years in an FA Cup final, and especially not in the last 10 years. For this group of players, it's a great opportunity that we need to take. Now, he keeps mentioning this. These words only hold weight if you win them finals. If you're discussing it after the games and you say, well, we've won 2 finals in 10 years, then yeah, people turn around and go, absolutely, 100%. Like, you can't disagree with that. But if you lose both of them, it's the total opposite effect. You then almost get the Ollie effects, don't you? Like, you can talk about Verdansk all you want, mate, but or it was just a keeper who missed a pen or whatever it is. You still lost the final. And then semi-finals to Leicester in the FA Cup and then you then develop that reputation of, well, you bottled it in 2 finals against your Manchester rivals. That's why I don't think he will survive it. I think if he loses the FA Cup final again, we're sat there as United fans. I'm like, we've lost 2 finals in 2 consecutive seasons to the same opponent who just happened to be one of our biggest rivals. And it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. I don't give us any chance of winning the FA Cup final. I'd be astonished if we beat City. I really, really would. And maybe that just might cling him in his job. Even still, I mean, they might get rid of him. But yeah, that kind of ties into the next topic which I wanted to discuss, which is, so CF Bayern, which is Christian Falk, I believe, who's very good around Bayern Munich news and Germany and stuff, actually put a tweet out before saying that Erik Ten Hag is being discussed at Bayern Munich, and then also in the same article saying Thomas Tuchel is still interested in the job at Manchester United. Tuchel doesn't want contact with United before the match against Real Madrid, which is understandable. So both managers have really important games in the Champions League and the FA Cup. And what's weird is both games almost could decide the future. So let's say, for example, Thomas Tuchel goes and wins the Champions League with Bayern Munich. Are they going to be so quick to get rid of him? Especially when you consider, 3 managers have turned him down already. Nagelsmann, nope, I'm staying with Germany. Rangnick, nope, not too sure about that. And who's the other one? They had another one. Oh, Xabi Alonso, was it, I think? Who turned down the opportunity as well. And then, yeah, so they're struggling at the minute to get a manager through the doors. So you look at it like, if Ineos get rid of Ten Hag, he's obviously worked there before with Pep, with the second team. They know him very well. Will they take a leap of faith for him? And then will Tuchel go there? Will he have a bit of a manager swap in your hands? Which is very, very interesting. And I think it's crazy, just as like a side note, that Bayern Munich, of all teams, are struggling to get a manager in. How mad is that? Bayern Munich. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. This is the first time I've seen like a Bayern operation panic and look a little bit shaky. They've been such a well-oiled machine for so long. You never would would like put Bayern in this conversation, but yeah, it's weird things going on there at the moment. So I could certainly see a summer where, if Tuchel loses if he goes out in the semis, let's say if Madrid beat him and we lose the FA Cup final to Man City, could we have a season where, Ten Hag goes to, in June, Ten Hag goes to Bayern Munich and then Tuchel comes here? I think that would be very interesting. But I suppose we'll have to wait and see what happens. Let's have a look at the chat. What are we saying? Ollie came to the final and lost it a couple of times. No, he's only been in one final, hasn't he? In the Europa League final. Is that right? And the rest he's gone out in semi-finals, I'm pretty sure. It's simple why we'd lose 9-10 finals to City. Unfortunately, we're not on their level. Bayern is confusing me to the manager after manager turning them down. It's the board. Bayern are crazy. Bayern's board are alienating all the potential managers. Yeah. I mean, we can kind of relate because we've been through all different kind of managers. Your best friend in Ole, who's played for the club. Jose Mourinho, proven winner. Louis van Gaal, in respects of what he's done in the game, fantastic. Erik Ten Hag, the one that everyone wanted, the one that the fans wanted, didn't work out. So it just seems like we've had no luck whatsoever. So we'll see we'll keep tabs on what happens with the manager situation. Of course, if anything happens on that as well, we will go live. So make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing when we do go live as well. Right, let's talk about Mason Greenwood, because I believe he's been nominated for La Liga's 23-24 Team of the Season, which is very interesting. 14 goal contributions in 28 games for Getafe is a decent return when he's been out of football for so long. And also, obviously, to be considered for Team of the Season in La Liga, you're doing something right. So, look, still, in my opinion, it's a good thing because he's driving his price up. I had the exact same standard with Jadon Sancho. Performs well in the Champions League. Everyone's talking about him. Great. His price is going to go up and up and up. The more they perform like this and the more kind of little accolades they got. Team of the Season, Player of the Month, top goal scorer, whatever it is. Then little accolades will all just keep pushing and pushing and pushing the price up. So when Juventus come and say, oh, we'll give you 15 million euros for Greenwood, you can say, get the fuck out of here. Not a chance are we going to sell you. I think still, in my opinion, I think I've said this from the start, even when we first sent him out on loan, I believe United are going to keep him and play him on that right-hand side. I do. I think Garnacho, Højlund, Greenwood, I can see. Unfortunately, I think Ahmad may move on, which kind of got confirmed a little bit by James yesterday. Didn't want to talk too much about it, but I love Ahmad, but he's going to end up moving on if he don't get game time. I think he said as well that both Sancho or Greenwood, one of them is going to end up staying, and I think it's going to be Greenwood, to be honest with you. I do. I've just had this feeling. Don't know what it is. No genuine insight or anything. I feel like he's going to stay. But I think the majority of people probably disagree with me, I suppose. They're going to refuse to leave without a very, very big payoff. Who's that? You on about the managers there? I'm guessing. Shreya's in the chat with the capybara emojis. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Also, let us know what you're doing this weekend. Let's have a little chat. Oh, we've got 5 minutes towards the end of the show. I don't know how long I've been live for. We've got a couple of minutes, let's just say. Any questions you want to throw in there? Anything you want to talk about the game on Monday? Anything to do with the interview? Any news I've missed whatsoever? Let's have a quick look on Twitter. And you guys control the show for the next couple of minutes. Let me know. I'm just going to see if there's any updates whilst we're live. Bruno Fernandes has been named Player of the Month for April. Well deserved. Goal against Chelsea. He scored against Liverpool as well. That halfway line one, which is a very good finish. Got 2 goals and assist against Sheffield. And created loads of chances in each game. So well deserved. No doubt in my mind he was going to get it. Be interested to see who gets Player of the Season for the Premier League. I don't think Bruno will get it, but I think it'd be interesting to see who does. So, yeah. Bruno Fernandes has been spotted with his right wrist in a protective medical cast. 2 weeks ago, he broke his hand against Coventry. Is that breaking news, really? It's not is that why he's going to miss the game? I don't know. Doesn't Greenwood himself want to move? He does. I think he does. Yeah, I think he's settled in Spain and he'd like to. I like to stay there or move to the Italian league from reports that I've seen. But again, it's Ineos' decision. You don't get a choice in it. So, yeah. That is what I think. Greenwood will go because he knows what kind of mess it'll become if he does stay at the club. I think the backlash will be huge, even still, after a year. You saw, when they tried bringing him back, the reaction that fans give just to that. So, yeah. Is Mount available now? He is, but I don't know. I mean, he'll definitely be in the squad against Palace, but I don't know if he's ready to start yet or not. The last start he had, actually, I looked at this the other day whilst I was live, was against Newcastle when we lost 3-0, believe it or not, in November. That was his last full start. So you can see we struggled to try to get him in. Gray Sheridan in the chat saying, I want Rashford gone. Make a statement. Ineos, no more player power. In fairness to Ineos, I think they've got this ethos, aren't they, saying, if you want to leave, you can leave. If you want to stay, we'll work with you and we'll see what happens and we'll see what offers come in or whatever. Like, there's a door open for everyone, which hasn't always been the case at United with certain players like Pogba or Martial or whoever it is you want to discuss. So, yeah, I think they are changing in that respect. Mount will get a 10-minute cameo at the end of the game. Charlie, spot on. You know this team. Of course you do. Bruno is possibly a cyborg. Yeah, I've heard less convincing conspiracies, to be honest with you. I could definitely see that. And he's going to be available for Monday, by the way. I know there's reports that he's going to be a doubt, but he'll end up playing. I can tell you now. Where would we be in the Prem without our injury crisis, says Dan. That's a very good question. Hard to answer, which is why it's a very good question. Where would we be? I think pushing for top 4. I think it would be close to Villa. And I don't think any further than that. If Lissandro Shaw and, let's say, Varane had been fit for the majority of the season, I think we'd be competing with Villa at least. And talking about Champions League football again, I don't think we'd be any further. Maybe we'd still be in the no, not in Champions League, semis, but we would have gone further in the Champions League, maybe. But I don't know, Nana had such a shocker, it's hard to say in that. But I think in the league, we'd be competing with in the Prem. Dino Lewis saying I'd cash in on Rashford and use the money for key signings like centre-back and striker. Yeah, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of sales. It's almost like you can't sell everyone, can you? But I don't know. There could be a couple of surprises in the summer. That's the feeling I've got. Elise would look to make the most of his game. I was actually watching a video compilation on Elise last night, like a tactical insight to him. And the more I watch him, the more I'm changing my opinion on him. I know he's got injury issues, which is a big concern, especially when you talk about Man United. That's the last thing you want. So that's a big red flag, in my opinion. But when you watch someone who's both-footed, loves to put crosses into the box, has got a great range of passing, his work rate off the ball's decent. He could play in settled possession. He could play on the transition. He's young. He's a good age profile. He's got a release clause. An release clause, some might say. Hey, yeah, I like him. I think he's a good player, and I think he'd fit United. But I've seen all these reports recently about Elise saying that he's a favourite for United from ESPN. Ornstein literally a week ago came out and said that he wants to go to a club at Champions League. And that's a journalist who, when it comes to London, clubs in London, he's right up there. Anyone knows that with David Ornstein anyway. So I would kind of listen more to Ornstein than I would to ESPN, but that's just my personal kind of thing. Could you imagine away fans going in on Greenwood on away games? It's not worth it. He might as well start fresh. He has a young family too. Yeah, I understand that. If Lissandro Shaw or Varane were there, we'd be near Villa for sure, says Shreyas. Charlie says this season can end good with us getting 5th, or it can become a disaster and we end up 8th. There is still going to be some drama before the season ends. For sure, mate. We've got 5-6 games left. We've got Palace, Newcastle, Arsenal, Brighton to play. And then we've got City in the FA Cup final. There's going to be some carnage, mate. 100%. We need to prioritise this summer. I don't want a non-priority player coming in like Elise, then not getting a position. We need more. I agree. It's like the same thing with Mount, innit? Like, you go spend 60 million on Mount, and then it's like, there's other areas of the pitch that... It's like buying fucking, I don't know, a TV for a house when you've not even bought the fucking washing machine or fridge yet. Really, innit? Like, TV would be nice. Probably need a new one, but we should probably get a washing machine and a dishwasher first. It's probably more useful. I'd sell as many players as possible and get close to his reset as we can. I have no hope for the FA Cup final. I'm with you on that, brother. I'm with you on that. Yeah, thank you for the great questions. You made some very good points there. We are going to be live again at 7 o'clock tonight, as always. So on Friday night, might do a bit of a Q&A, might do something a little bit different, take it away from the new shows that we've been doing. If you have some spare time today, over the weekend, whatever it is, and you're struggling for content, something to listen to whilst you're in the bath, going to bed, on a run, whatever it is you do in your life, check out the interview we did with James from the Muppeteers last night. If you want any news on transfers, Ineos, the future of the club, anything like that whatsoever, go and check that interview out because it's really, really good and it's very insightful. And me and Sam were just sat there and happy to listen to him because he knows his shit. Also, we've got a pre-recorded video on how Man United could line up next season. That's almost hitting 1,000 views, which would be absolutely amazing. So please do go check that out. And we've got loads of live shows as well that we've done over the past couple of days. Which, yeah, if you want to go check them out, then please do. What are we on right now? Imagine the scenes if we got Frenkie de Jong, Nick. I know. Listen, you guys don't want to see the video. Well, you'll want to see, the video I drop. If we sign Frenkie de Jong, I'm telling you now, there will be champagne outside Old Trafford. 100%. I promise you that. If we sign him, there will be a video of that. But I think we're a long way off that, to be honest with you. Rashford is the ideal replacement for Mbappe at PSG. Potentially, yeah, but his wages are also an issue. Oh, he's on like 350 grand a week. It's hard to see that happening. But if any team can afford it, I suppose it's PSG. Tottenham or Arsenal? Tottenham. Sorry, yeah, Tottenham. Anyway, I shall leave it at that. Thank you very much for everyone who's tuning in, you absolute set of legends. Appreciate everyone interacting and getting in the comments section and spending time with me and taking time out of your day on a Friday to do it. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Let's see what news United bring. Let's see what show we can do tonight. We've got Palace on Monday, so we've got the preview that we need to do at some point as well, which I completely forgot about. And then we've got, I'm going to drop a tier list video over the weekend as well for this summer, so keep an eye out for that. Loads of stuff going on. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everyone. Have a nice